Tonight, I will be talking about the causes of forgetfulness in working and long-term memory for the Chapter 10 mini-lecture. There are several causes of forgetting as it pertains to memory. They are trace decay, proactive interference, and retroactive interference. Trace decay is associated with the passage of time. Trace decay can be tested for in working memory pretty easily. However, we can't really test for it in long-term memory. Trace decay is not protected from interference. If you try to perform a movement that you haven't practiced in years, it probably takes a while to get it right. Movements in memory storage have affected the old movement pattern, and trace decay is mixed with memory interference over time. Our textbook asserts that typically, long-term memory forgetting is more likely a retrieval problem or an interference problem, rather than the decay of the memory itself. Next up is proactive interference. This occurs when we are trying to remember new information, but the activity that we engaged in just before negatively affects our ability to remember this new information. When considering how this happens in working memory, it seems to occur when there are similarities between the new activity and the interfering activity. Our memory gets confused and mixes up the old information with what is to be remembered because it is too similar to each other. Now considering how proactive interference occurs in long-term memory, we don't know how it works. There's a concept called the negative transfer of learning that is relevant here, but we haven't gotten to Chapter 13 yet, so I'm not going to go over it. The last case of forgetfulness is labeled retroactive interference. This is similar to proactive interference, except that the interfering activity occurs after we learn the new activity or information. As we think about how this works in working memory, there are two ways that memories are affected, and they're pretty simple. The interfering activity performed after the learned movement has to be similar to the learned movement, or there is too much going on during the learned activity which exceeds our working memory / attention capacity limits. Finally, we can contemplate how retroactive interference affects our long-term memory. Really, it only affects our discrete skills. Discrete skills typically have a large verbal component which deteriorates over time. Discrete skills also don't require the amount of practice that continuous skills need. Continuous skills last longer in our long-term memory thanks to the amount of practice they require. Continuous skills also typically have a smaller verbal component.